In a quiet corner of Africa, there was a small, forgotten village called Gokwe. The land was dry, and the sun always seemed to shine a little too hard. Most people in Gokwe struggled just to find enough food for the day. But in this hard land lived a boy named Timmy, a boy with nothing in his pockets, but so much kindness in his heart. Timmy lived with his grandmother, Mama Naya, in a small mud hut with a roof made of dried grass. His parents had died in a flood many years ago, and since then, Mama Naya had raised him with wisdom, love, and strong village values. Every morning, Timmy would wake up before sunrise, carry his old basket, and walk around the village looking for small jobs, carrying firewood, fetching water, sweeping compounds, just to earn a few coins. Sometimes he earned enough for a piece of yam or bread. Sometimes he earned nothing at all, but he never complained. One evening, as Timmy returned from a long day of working under the sun, he passed by the old market square. There, sitting under a broken wooden stall, was an old man. His clothes were dusty and torn, his beard was white like ash, and his eyes looked tired but kind. Timmy stopped. The old man looked up weakly and said, "Boy, do you have a little food? I haven't eaten since yesterday." Timmy looked into his small basket. He had only one round bread he had saved to share with Mama Naya. He hesitated. Just a moment. But then he walked forward, broke the bread in half, and gave it to the man. "You can have this, Grandpa," Timmy said, smiling. The old man blinked in surprise. "Why would you give your only bread to an old beggar like me?" "Because you're hungry," Timmy replied simply. The old man took the bread with shaky hands and whispered, "Thank you, my son. You are rare." Timmy just nodded and walked away, barefoot, tired but feeling a strange warmth in his heart. That night, Mama Naya noticed that Timmy came home without anything to eat. "Where is the bread you usually bring?" she asked, concerned. Timmy looked down and quietly said, "I gave it to an old man who had nothing." Mama Naya looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "My son," she said softly, "even when we have little, we must still be wise. But I know your heart. You are your father's son." Timmy nodded. He lay down on the floor mat, his stomach empty, but his heart full. The next day, he went back to the same place. The old man was still there, sitting in the same spot, weak and shivering. Without being asked, Timmy gave him the small piece of roasted yam he had gotten from working at the village well. Again, the old man was shocked. "Why do you keep helping me?" he asked. Timmy smiled. "Because one day, someone helped me too." The villagers began to talk. "That boy is wasting his time on a crazy beggar," some said. "He should think of himself and his grandmother," others whispered. But Timmy didn't listen. He kept sharing his little food. He kept sitting with the old man, asking about his past, listening to stories that sounded like dreams. To Timmy, kindness wasn't a big act. It was just what his heart told him to do. What he didn't know was that this simple act of kindness was about to change his entire life. Forever. The sun rose again over Gokwe village, warm and golden. Birds chirped, goats bleated, and children ran to the stream with buckets on their heads. But Timmy had only one thing on his mind: the old man at the market square. He picked up 2 boiled cassava roots from the kitchen shelf. Mama Naya had saved them for lunch, but Timmy gently wrapped them in a banana leaf. "I'll be back, Grandma," he said, avoiding her eyes. "Timmy," Mama Naya called gently. "Don't tell me you are still feeding that strange man." Timmy paused at the door. "He's not strange, Grandma, just poor and hungry." Mama Naya shook her head. "And what about us? Do we have plenty? You haven't paid your school fees this term. If you don't finish your studies, you'll end up poor like—" She stopped herself. Timmy turned slowly. "Mama, If we turn away from people just because we are poor too, what makes us different from those with cold hearts? Mama Naya said nothing. She watched as her grandson walked away, torn shirt, bare feet, and a heart richer than gold. At the market square, Baba Kone was coughing when Timmy arrived. His hands were trembling. Timmy knelt beside him and offered the cassava. "Eat, Baba. You need strength today." Baba Kone looked into the boy's eyes. "You keep coming, even when others stay away." Timmy smiled. "That's because I see you, not just your clothes." Baba Kone said nothing more. He took the food with silent tears in his eyes. But back in the village, people were talking louder now. "Why is that boy always with the mad beggar?" one woman asked. "I heard the man is cursed," another said. "Anyone who sits near him will never prosper." Some even warned Mama Naya, "If you're not careful, your grandson will bring shame on your family." The old woman listened quietly, but said nothing. That evening, Mama Naya sat Timmy down and said, "Son, there's something I haven't told you. I was able to gather enough money for part of your school fees. You need to go pay tomorrow morning before the headmaster closes registration." Timmy's eyes lit up. "Thank you, Mama." But when morning came, Timmy passed by the square before heading to school. There he found Baba Kone lying on his side, groaning in pain. He hadn't eaten. His body was hot with fever. He could barely speak. Timmy looked at the small purse of coins in his hand. It was just enough to pay the school fee. He stood still for a long time, heart pounding. School meant a future, a chance to leave poverty behind. But here was a man who might die without help. And then Timmy made a choice. He ran to the village chemist and bought a packet of medicine and a cup of millet porridge. All the money was gone. Later, he sat with Baba Kone, helping him swallow the medicine. "I should be in school," Timmy whispered to himself, "but I am here. And I don't regret it." When he returned home empty-handed, Mama Naya's face fell. "Tell me you paid your fees," she said. Timmy couldn't speak. He only shook his head. "You gave the money away?" Her voice cracked. Timmy nodded. He needed it more. Mama Naya covered her face, silent for a long time. But inside her, pride fought with worry. She didn't know what the future would bring, but she knew one thing. Timmy's heart was pure. The dry season had lasted too long in Gokwe village. The land cracked, and the trees stood thin like tired elders. Everyone prayed for rain, and finally one afternoon dark clouds gathered in the sky like a crowd of drummers ready to play. Children danced in the dusty streets shouting, "Rain is coming! Rain is coming!" Even Mama Naya looked up and smiled. "Ah, the heavens have remembered us." But as the sky darkened and thunder began to roll like distant drums, Timmy felt uneasy. Something didn't feel right. He quickly grabbed an old sack and ran toward the market square. There, as expected, Baba Kone sat curled beneath his broken stall, his thin arms hugging his knees. The wind had already begun to howl, and dust whipped through the air like angry spirits. "Baba!" Timmy shouted over the wind. "We must find shelter!" The old man looked up weakly. He hadn't spoken much since his fever last week. His body was still recovering. Timmy helped him stand, holding him tightly as the wind grew stronger. Trees swayed, the market stalls creaked, and lightning split the sky like a sword of light. They didn't make it far. Just as they reached a nearby shed, a branch flew from a tree and struck the ground behind them. People were screaming in the distance, running for cover as the storm arrived in full strength. Timmy held the old man in the shed, wrapping the sack around both of them as rain poured like a waterfall from the sky. Thunder crashed above their heads, and water soaked through the thatched roof. For hours the storm raged. It tore off roofs, flooded farms, and destroyed homes. The river near the village overflowed and carried away goats, wood, and whatever was in its path. When the storm finally passed, the village lay in silence, wet, broken, and shaken. The next morning, Gokwe woke up to ruin. Crops were washed away, mud huts were half collapsed. Women cried over lost food stores, and men tried to fix what little was left. Timmy rushed back to the shed, but Baba Kone was gone. He searched everywhere: the market, the riverbank, the bush paths. Nothing. Timmy asked passers-by, but no one had seen him. It was like the old man had vanished with the storm. He returned home, muddy and tired, his heart heavy. Maybe he left the village, Mama Naya offered gently. Timmy shook his head. He was too weak. Something's wrong. The days passed, and Baba Kone did not return. Timmy felt like he had lost a part of himself. He blamed himself for not staying with the old man through the night. Guilt settled in his chest like a stone. One evening, as he helped rebuild a neighbor's broken fence, he slipped and cut his leg on a sharp piece of wood. The wound was deep. Blood ran down his foot, and the pain made him dizzy. He limped to the shade of a tree and sat down, holding his leg tightly. No one noticed him. Everyone was too busy fixing their homes. Then a soft voice called out, "You need help, young man." Timmy looked up. A stranger stood before him, tall, with a walking stick and a wide straw hat. The man knelt and opened a small cloth pouch. Inside were herbs and bandages. Without asking questions, the man cleaned the wound and wrapped it gently. Timmy winced but said, "Thank you, sir. Who are you?" The man smiled. "Just a traveler passing through." But as he walked away, Timmy noticed something strange. The man's eyes. They looked exactly like Baba Kone's. 2 weeks passed since the storm. Gokwe village was still trying to recover. The river had dried again, the crops were gone, and many families were sleeping under the open sky. But even in the middle of struggle, life moved on. Timmy had returned to his daily work, carrying firewood, helping old women draw water, and doing any job he could find. He still thought about Baba Kone every day, wondering where he had gone. His heart ached with questions that had no answers. Then, one hot afternoon, a sound broke through the village like a song of hope. It was the rumble of engines, something rarely heard in Gokwe. Children stopped playing. Farmers dropped their tools. Everyone turned their heads toward the village road. A convoy of shiny black jeeps and gold-trimmed trucks slowly rolled into the village, their tires raising small clouds of red dust. At the front of the convoy was a long, sleek car, more beautiful than any vehicle the villagers had ever seen. People gathered in the square, whispering and pointing. Who could this be? From the front car, a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. His robe was deep gold, with green embroidery that sparkled under the sun. He wore brown leather sandals, a smooth walking stick in one hand, and a calm smile on his face. He was surrounded by men in suits, but he held up his hand and said, "Let me walk alone." He stepped into the crowd, and everyone moved aside respectfully. The chief of the village, Chief Dondo, came forward with confusion and caution. "Welcome, stranger," Chief Dondo said. "May I know your name?" The man smiled warmly. "My name is Mr. Kone Damba. I am here to thank this village and to give something back," the villagers murmured. "Give back? Why?" Mr. Kone Damba continued. "Years ago, I left my home in the city to understand the heart of the people. I wanted to find something I had lost in the world of wealth, true kindness, and honesty." No one fully understood, but his words were gentle and powerful. Mr. Kone turned to his assistant and whispered something. Within minutes, workers began unloading items from the trucks: sacks of rice, bags of flour, cartons of medicine, roofing sheets, and new school supplies. "I am building you a new school," Mr. Kone announced. "A clinic, a well with clean water, and every family will receive food to last them through the season." A cheer erupted in the crowd. Women began singing. Men raised their hands in praise. Children danced. Timmy stood quietly at the edge, confused. Who was this man? Why was he doing all this? As the celebration grew louder, Mr. Cone's eyes met Timmy's from across the crowd, and he smiled. Timmy blinked. His heart skipped. That smile. Those eyes. He had seen them before. The golden man slowly walked toward him. "You," he said, stopping right in front of Timmy. "Do you remember me?" Timmy's mouth opened, but no words came. Mr. Cone leaned in and whispered, "You gave me your bread when I was starving. You stayed with me when the world walked away." Timmy gasped, his eyes wide with shock. "Baba Cone?" he whispered. Mr. Cone nodded. "Yes, my son. But that was just a name, a test. And you passed it with a heart so pure that I could not forget you." Timmy fell to his knees, overwhelmed. The villagers stood frozen, watching the rich man kneel beside a poor boy and hold his hand. In that moment, they all knew this was no ordinary story. This was the beginning of something beautiful. The sun had never shone brighter on Gokwe village. For the first time in many years, people smiled with hope instead of fear. With trucks unloading supplies, new walls going up, and workers moving with purpose, the village had turned into a place of promise. But no one was more confused or overwhelmed than Timmy. He sat outside the chief's hut, rubbing his hands nervously. Mama Naya stood beside him, whispering prayers under her breath. Moments later, the door opened, and a messenger said, "The chief and Mr. Cone Damba will see you now." Timmy stepped inside. The room was cool and quiet. Chief Dondo sat at one end, and beside him was Mr. Cone Damba, dressed in simpler clothes today, but still commanding respect with every glance. Mr. Cone rose from his seat. "Timmy," he began, "you don't need to bow. You are the reason I am here." Timmy stood still, unsure of what to say. "I came to this village as a beggar," Mr. Cone continued, "because I wanted to find someone who would treat me with kindness, not knowing who I was. I wore rags. I slept in the dust. And while others laughed, you came close. You gave what little you had. You stayed beside me during the storm. You gave your school fee to save my life." Timmy blinked back tears. He didn't do it for reward. He just couldn't walk away from someone in need. Mr. Cone turned to the chief. "And so, I asked Chief Dondo to summon you, because this village must know who you are." Chief Dondo stood. "Timmy, son of Mama." "Naya," he said, voice loud and proud, "your name will be remembered in Gokwe forever." He handed Timmy a certificate stamped with the seal of the regional government. "This certificate grants you full scholarship to the best school in the capital city. All expenses paid." Gasps echoed around the room. Mr. Cone stepped forward again. "And that is not all. Mama Naya's house will be rebuilt, and a small shop opened in her name so she can live without worry. You, Timmy, will be given a new set of clothes, books, and a personal mentor to guide your future." Timmy's knees buckled. He had never dreamed of such things. A scholarship? A new house? A real chance? "Why me?" he asked, voice shaking. Mr. Cone smiled gently. "Because you showed me what no money can buy. A true heart." Later that evening, the entire village gathered for a feast. There was dancing, drumming, and laughter under the moonlight. A goat was roasted. Palm wine flowed. Children wore new sandals gifted by Mr. Cone's team. When Timmy was invited to speak, he stepped forward slowly, holding the microphone with trembling hands. "Didn't help Baba Cone because I expected anything," he said. "I did it because he was hungry, and because I knew if I were in his place, I would want someone to help me too." There was silence, and then clapping, loud and long. Even those who had once mocked him now nodded in shame, and admiration. "Mama." Naya came forward and wrapped her arms around him. "My son," she whispered, "I told you your father's spirit lived in you. Today the whole village sees it too." Timmy smiled, but deep inside, he was not smiling because of the gift. He was smiling because now he knew. Kindness does not go unnoticed. Days turned into weeks, and Gokwe village began to blossom like a dry land kissed by rain. The new school's foundation was complete. The clinic's walls were rising fast, and clean water flowed from the new borehole for the first time in decades. But even in the middle of all this change, the biggest transformation was happening in the hearts of the people. And at the center of it all was Timmy. Timmy now wore neat clothes, carried a bag filled with books, and walked with quiet confidence. Yet, he remained the same boy who once gave away his only bread. He still helped Mama Naya fetch water and greeted elders with a bow. Humble, even as everyone began calling him the boy with the golden heart. One morning, as Timmy helped an old man repair his broken fence, a group of boys walked by, the same ones who once mocked him for spending time with a useless beggar. They hesitated, whispering among themselves, unsure if they should approach. But then the tallest one, Falo, stepped forward. "Timmy," he said, scratching his head. "We want to talk to you." Timmy turned, his smile calm. "I'm listening." We were wrong about you," Falo said, eyes on the ground. "We laughed when you helped that old man. We said you were foolish, but now we see you were right." The other boys nodded. Timmy looked at them. Not with pride, not with anger, just quiet understanding. "Everyone makes mistakes," he said gently. "But what matters is what you do after. Are you willing to change?" They nodded again. And with a wide smile, Timmy handed each of them a cold drink from his bag. "Then let's build this fence together." That afternoon, the chief watched from his palace window as Timmy and the boys worked side by side, laughing, sweating, and learning from one another. "This boy," Chief Dondo said to Mr. Kondamba, "he is a seed, one that will grow into a mighty tree." Mr. Cone nodded, pride in his eyes. Later that evening, a grand village celebration was held. A storyteller, Old Bantu, stood before the fire and spoke to the crowd. "In the days of our grandfathers," he began, "we told stories of warriors, of kings, of men who conquered with swords. But tonight, we tell the story of a boy who conquered with love." He turned to Timmy. "Young man, may your story be passed from mouth to ear for generations." The crowd cheered, but the biggest moment came when Mama Naya was called to the front. The village elder presented her with a large wooden key, the symbol of her new home. "Because you raised a child with a good heart, you shall never beg again," the elder said. "This shop and house are yours, forever." Tears rolled down Mama Naya's cheeks. "I am just a poor old woman," she said, voice shaking. "But today, I feel richer than queens, not because of gold or silver, but because my grandson never stopped listening to his heart." Timmy stood by her side, eyes misty, hand in hers. Later that night, as he sat under the stars, Mr. Cone joined him. "You've changed this village," the man said. Timmy shook his head. "I didn't do much." Mr. Cone smiled. "That's where you're wrong. You did everything." The stars twinkled above, and in that peaceful silence, something unspoken passed between them, a bond that only true kindness could form. The sun rose gently over Gokwe village, its rays bathing the land in gold. The trees swayed slowly in the breeze, and the birds sang songs of peace. It was a new day, but not just any day. It was the day Timmy would leave for the capital. "Mama." Naya woke him up early, tears already forming in her eyes. She had packed his small bag the night before, 2 shirts, a pair of trousers, a Bible, and the beaded necklace she had worn since her wedding day. "Timmy," she said softly, "this necklace was your grandfather's gift to me. Now I give it to you. Let it remind you of where you come from." Timmy took it carefully. The necklace had a simple charm shaped like an open palm, a symbol of giving. He bowed low before Mama Naya and hugged her tightly. "Thank you for everything, Grandma." The village gathered to say goodbye. Chief Dondo gave a farewell speech. Old Bantu told a short riddle. Even Phalo and the boys brought small handmade gifts, a walking stick carved with Timmy's name, a book of proverbs, and a drawing of the village tree where they had once played as children. When Mr. Cone's black jeep arrived, the crowd fell silent. Timmy turned one last time and looked at Gokwe. The cracked paths, the rebuilt school, the smiling faces, and Mama Naya waving with her cloth. As the jeep pulled away, tears streamed down his face. Not of sadness, but of gratitude. The journey to the city was long and winding. Timmy looked out the window, watching as the dry fields gave way to green plantations, then paved roads, and finally tall buildings that reached for the clouds. They arrived at a tall gate, guarded by men in smart uniforms. Beyond the gate stood a massive school, painted white and blue, with large classrooms, libraries, and fields as wide as the village square. "This will be your new home," Mr. Cone said with a smile. Timmy nodded, nervous but excited. That night, as he lay on a soft mattress in his own room, Timmy stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, from sharing bread with a beggar to sitting in a room filled with books and dreams. The next morning, his mentor, a kind professor named Mr. Obasi, came to meet him. "I heard about your story," he said, shaking Timmy's hand. "It is already inspiring others, but remember, this is just the beginning." Timmy smiled. "I don't want to be great just for myself. I want to return to Gokwe one day and build a training center for village children who cannot afford school." Mr. Obasi nodded. "Now that is a noble dream." Years passed like the wind. Timmy studied hard, earned high grades, and became a respected speaker. He shared his story at conferences, schools, and even on radio shows. And true to his word, one day, he returned to Gokwe. Not as a boy with dusty feet, but as a young man with vision and purpose. He built the Timmy Learning Center, a place where poor children could study for free. Mama Naya, now older but still strong, cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony. "This is the reward of kindness," she said. "A harvest that began with one loaf of bread." As the crowd cheered, Timmy stood at the gate of the new center, necklace around his neck, eyes filled with tears. Not because he had succeeded, but because he had never forgotten where it all began, with a choice to help a hungry stranger.